Hello, I'm Dr. Henry, and today you will watch me do formative assessment with a wonderful third grade student. And would that student introduce himself?
I am Philip Masog from Mrs. Lundgren's class in third grade.
All right, thank you, Philip, for being here today. What I am working with is the Comprehension interview, which is from Jan Richardson's book, The Next Step in Guided Reading. This is also adapted from Keene's Major Point Interview for Reading, Mosaic of Thought. And today, since this is formative, I'm going to have Philip take his book that he's reading for independent reading, and we're going to do a quick comprehension interview. Now, Philip, is this an informational book or is this fiction?
This is realistic fiction because it could happen in real life.
Okay, awesome. Now, can you please tell me a little bit about what has happened in the story so far, the problem, maybe the setting, the characters, a brief retelling?
Some people have kidnapped some members of a big family, and two members of the family are working for the kidnappers and trying to get priceless items to set the people that they kidnapped free.
Okay, and is this happening in one particular part of the country? Where is it happening?
They travel all around the world to try to find the different things.
Okay, and when you say things, what do you mean?
The items that the kidnappers specifically want.
Oh, okay. Any solutions so far?
They have found a couple items, but no one has been set free.
Okay, thank you. Now, what I'd like to do is I'd like to have you read a little bit about what's going on in the book, and then I might stop you occasionally to ask you a question. So, would you please open your book and read to me, please?
Somewhere in all of this data, Vesper 1 had left a trail, and a single cyber fingerprint they could use to track him down. The Vespers usually operated in the dark, but by taking the hostages and killing McIntyre, they had scurried briefly into the light.
Could you stop for a second? Now, I noticed that you corrected yourself. How do you know that you needed to correct yourself? What did you do to make that make sense?
Well, when I first said it, it didn't make sense to me.
Okay.
So I corrected it, and then it made sense to me.
Okay. And would you point to that last sentence, please, that you just read, Philip? Okay. Why don't you start reading right here, the Vespers?
The Vespers usually operated in the dark, but by taking the hostages and killing McIntyre, they had scurried briefly into the light. This was the time to find them. Aramis poured through all the emails, but only two items stood out. The thieves had broken into the lab or notaire, National des Champs, Mécanettes, Intestines, in Toulouse, France.
Okay, stop right there. Now, tell me what you just read about. It seemed like it was a little, you were a little hesitant as reading. Tell me what you were reading about.
I was reading about where they were and what they were doing and how they were doing it.
Okay, and can you be more specific than that, Philip? Maybe tell me what you were thinking in your mind. What were you visualizing? What picture was going on in your mind?
That they're trying to track down people, and they're...
Okay. What do you think will happen next?
That they might get caught.
Okay. Where are you now in the book? Would you point to the part that you're reading next? Okay, please start again.
It had taken the entire weekend to get the equipment out of the laboratory. Unless the thieves were practical physics, they would have had absolutely no use for their loot.
Okay, would you stop just for a second? What were you wondering about when you read this part?
What equipment?
Mm-hmm. What kind of equipment, okay. And then I noticed that you kind of skipped over this part. Unless the thieves were particle physicists, they would have absolutely no use for their loot. What does that make sense to you?
Not really.
Okay, so that's a tricky part. What do you do when you're alone when you hit a tricky part?
I usually try to use my sounding out the words and try to see or just read the sentence before it and use my tools.
Okay. Do you have questions going on in your mind right now about this book?
A little.
What is a question that you might have?
Who are the hostages?
Okay. And what about confusions? Do you have some confusions about this book?
Yes.
What are your confusions?
Sometimes I don't really understand.
Okay. Now, do you think that this is a just right fit book for you?
Yes.
Okay. And why do you say that?
Because a lot of kids are my reading level, and they read the same books as this.
Do you like this book?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know what I'm going to do, Philip, is I'm going to have you read a little bit to yourself, and I'll come back again tomorrow to see how you're faring with this book for independent reading and to see if some of your confusions have cleared up. Does that sound good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I love the way that you've used your strategies to clear up some of your confusion, and you have some fix-up strategies, which is awesome. And I'm thinking that this book has a lot of big words, so you might have some questions as you go forward. Could you please write some of your questions down as you're reading the book so next time we meet, you and I can discuss those? Okay, well, thank you, Philip. So thank you for helping me with this comprehension interview, and we will check back another day with Philip and to see how he's doing with this wonderful book. Thank you, Philip.
Mm-hmm.